Hi, everyone. I'm Megan Ramos, and I'm here today with a very special guest, Dr. Terri Lance. Terri is actually part of our fasting method family. She's one of our medical advisors. Her background is in psychology, so she's helping us develop all kinds of behavioral tools to help you make fasting and dietary changes sustainable for the rest of your life. Terri right now works with us also as a fasting coach. So she's working one-on-one with individuals, helping them figure out their dietary and fasting struggles to achieve their ultimate health goals. So welcome, Terri. Thank you for being with us today on our YouTube channel.
Well, thanks for having me here, Megan. This is exciting.
We are new to the world of YouTube, despite Dr. Fong having so many YouTube followers and YouTube visits. Terri's our first fasting coach that we're featuring. Every one of our fasting coaches has a really unique background and has more of a unique area of expertise. So I look forward to having everyone on the channel talking about their stories. So Terri, could you tell us a little bit about what got you into fasting and how that sort of shaped your career?
Sure. I think, whenever I try to explain this to a new client, I always talk about my own journey is really what led me to this. I was a teacher at the beginning of my career, and then I went back to school and I became a psychologist, and things were fine career-wise, but my health and my weight were always a challenge for me. So from the time I was a young kid, I was always overweight, struggling with my weight. And when I was in my early 30s, I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes and still struggling with my weight. I was one of those people who would try every kind of dieting plan and lose a lot of weight and then gain a lot of weight, and oftentimes more than I had originally lost. So I finally, about 6 years ago, realized I needed to change my life. And so I really changed how I was eating. A couple years into that, I added in fasting as well. And I started with some longer fasts. I actually started with extended fasting, which now is, I would much rather do intermittent fasting, but I did start with extended fasting. And then I got to work with you for a while, having you as a coach, which helped me really get on track and see some more progress. And so then just through meeting with you and talking a lot about kind of where I was headed, and you started expressing some interest in working together. So I was able to, for the most part, close my practice as a psychologist and move into this coaching realm, which for me has been great because it's taking both of my former careers as a teacher and as a psychologist and bringing them together in this area that's so significant in my life.
Your before and after photos are just amazing. So for everyone watching today, I met a very healthy Terri. We first met, I think, at Low Carb Breckenridge, the very first Low Carb Breckenridge. The two keto dudes, Richard Morris and Carl Franklin, rented a lovely house. And I got to actually meet and chat with Terri for the first time there. And like, she looks fantastic, and you can just feel the positive energy and just like the energy in general radiating off of her. And it's nice to be in that kind of company. And I'm like, wow, this is one really healthy woman. And then you started to tell me a little bit about your story, and you hear it. It's one thing to hear it, but it's another thing to see it. So after Terri officially joined the fasting method as a coach, there was a festival that happened in New London, Connecticut called Keto Fest. And the Friday of Keto Fest, we hosted Fasting Friday with the whole fasting method team. And we wanted all of our coaches to show their before and after photos. And Terri's before photo, when I first saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, like just the complete transformation, especially in such a short period of time too, is really phenomenal. So actually, Terri had first emailed the photo in to our operating officer, who happens to be my husband. And he said, Megan, you're not going to believe this. Like, I can't believe this is Terri. It's just awesome. So Terri, everyone's going to know in the comment box, they're all going to want to know, what was this extended fasting did you start off with? Was it like 120 days? Was it like 2 days? What was it?
I started doing 3-day fast. And for me, I mean, I couldn't imagine going more than, I guess at that point I was probably doing 18-6 regularly. And 3 days just sounded like forever. And so I did some 3-day fasts. I did a couple of 4-day. I even did a 5.5-day. And I never went beyond that. I remember originally talking with you, my goal had been to get to 7 days for health reasons. And I never did do one that long yet. As I said, I prefer the shorter fast now, but I've never gone beyond a 5.5-day.
A lot of women find 3 days to be very beneficial for them. Women more so than men. Like their ghrelin, their primary hunger hormone, really takes a deep dive, especially after the 36-hour mark. Your body virtually produces none of it by the 72-hour mark. So our 3rd day of fasting, we're virtually experiencing no hunger, whereas men tend to experience more fluctuations in ghrelin from day to day than us ladies do when we're in a fast. So a lot of people find that it's just easier to get into a fast and stay there for a few days. And I did a 72-hour fasting protocol to try to drop through some stubborn weight loss plateaus where my body set weight just seemed like it wasn't going to crack unless I hit it with a big hammer. So for a while I did the 3-day fast, and then that last little bit, that last 5 pounds, that was really stubborn, I did some more 5-day fasting too. All right, so no 120-day fast for everyone in the comment box, but 3 to 5 days is a really good range to mix it up, especially if you're struggling and have a lot of insulin resistance like Terri did and like I did. So Terri, I feel like although very different, still sort of similar situations with our careers. I got into nephrology. So for those of you listening, it's the study of kidney disease. Dr. Fung's actually a kidney doctor. And I started doing research in nephrology because I wanted to try to be able to detect it earlier, give the patients skills, tools that they needed to slow down their kidney disease or prevent it from progressing and maybe even reverse it. And that was the whole reason why I went into nephrology. I had a strong passion for that, is what I wanted to do even as a young teenager when I started at the clinic. And well, I'm not saying that there isn't a need for all of the amazing staff in nephrology. But now that I've learned these tools through diet, through fasting and lifestyle that are so beneficial, I left nephrology formally to help teach people how to integrate this lifestyle. And they're now able to slow down the progression of their kidney disease, perhaps prevent kidney disease from occurring, or to try to sustain their kidney function where it is through that dietary and lifestyle interventions. So they definitely still need to go to the chronic kidney disease clinic, get all of the support there. But I just couldn't, knowing everything that I knew about nutrition and lifestyle, couldn't just sit there on the research end of things anymore. I thought I had a different calling, and that my work could be integrative with the work of my former colleagues in the nephrology department. So what made you say, okay, counseling's great, but let's try to focus on the nutrition side of things? Was there any times where you were working with a client and thought, if we changed your diet, maybe it would help with some of the symptoms that you're experiencing?
Absolutely. And I think one of the frustrations for me is I felt kind of limited to talk about it very much, because within the field of psychology, there's a lot of ethical boundaries about what you can talk about and what you can't. And when I watched people struggling health-wise, and I struggle with their weight, struggle with lots of medications, I just wanted to give them some other tools. At some point, I even considered maybe going to some type of medical training, go to a naturopath program or something, because I just wanted to find a different way to help people. And so again, getting to do this coaching, it's so exciting. Someone just asked me the other day, like, what do you like about your job? And I said, oh my gosh, when someone tells me their A1C came down, or, they had lost hope that they could ever lose weight, and since January, they've already lost 9 pounds, like, that is so rewarding. And I wasn't feeling that anymore as a psychologist, talking about antidepressants and different things. So it's just been really rewarding to help people at a more foundational level to address their health.
For the person out there who's listening to us, and I guess first, as fasting coaches like we are, we know that there is a physiological component to adapting to being in a fasted state. The body goes through transitioning from sugar burning to fat burning. There's hormonal changes. People lose water, electrolyte balances might get thrown off. So there are some physiological concerns, but throughout human history, we are expert fasters, and we've fasted since the beginning of mankind. Our bodies are well adapted, for the most part, to be in a fasting state. And while there is a percentage of the population who struggles physically, a lot of it is mental, because our kitchens are close and stocked with good food. Everywhere we go, we buy gas, we go to get coffee, we even go to the pharmacy, and we're just bombarded by sugary treats or starchy treats. So we struggle a lot with the mindset. We find that in a lot of cases, fasting is more mind over matter. Terri, what have you found since being a fasting coach? What are the biggest mental hurdles that you've encountered?
I think one of the biggest is, and I know this sounds so obvious, but just changing so many behaviors and so many old thought patterns. Like, it's noon, that means it's lunch. And, people just have themselves set on a schedule that all revolves around food. And so much of our social interactions with people, our business interactions revolve around food. And to really start to kind of tease those things out and stop connecting everything with food, I think is one of the biggest things that people need to do in really making this transition work. And it's not easy. And the other thing I think happens for most people is that once you start fasting, you realize how much you've been using food in ways that you didn't even know were problematic. Every time you're bored, every time you're upset, every time you're scared, every time you're lonely. And so I have found for many people, the awareness around their problematic use of food really kind of heightens once they start really enacting the fasting. And I think that's where we're focusing to really help people, because it is very doable, but it is a lot of change. It's a lot of awareness and change in behavior, a lot of change in mindset as far as how we talk to ourselves. So many times I hear people say, I can't do that. I can't go for more than 5 hours without eating, or I can't not have this, or I can't do this. And changing how we talk about ourselves and to ourselves, I think, is kind of fundamental to making these changes. Fasting is not hard. Thinking about fasting is hard, and thinking about not eating is hard. But once we start talking to ourselves in a way that's supportive of it, big change can happen. So I think the mindset, changing old patterns, and most of these are patterns we've had since we were little kids. Many of us learned, finish everything on your plate. You can't skip a meal. Poor child's going to die if they don't eat today. So lots of big changes that I think people actually have to address in making this significant change.
I was personally, in my own experience, I've seen this with like thousands of people that would come through a program. But for me, so many things I had like associated with food that I never even thought of or could have even anticipated. For years, I lived in the suburbs, and I've been at the nephrology clinic. I was there for just over 20 years before I departed. So that's a lot of driving and commuting back and forth. And when I started fasting, I realized that my mindset when I got in the car to go home was to think about what I was going to have for dinner. How was I going to prepare it? Go through a mental checklist of what was in the refrigerator and the cupboards. Did I have all of the ingredients? Did I need to stop somewhere on the way home to get something? Mm-hmm. And I had done this for a decade at this point. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is an automatic response. This is a habit. I don't even think about it. I get into my car and this is what I think about. So I had to play around with some different strategies for those days that I intended to fast when I got home. So I recorded a list of to-do things on my phone that I could play back to myself while I was driving to start thinking about, what gifts are you going to buy for your mom for this holiday, or, planning out Mother's Day or Valentine's Day, or other things to try to change my mind. And then technology became a little bit more advanced, and thank gosh, you could start listening to podcasts in your car and audiobooks in your car. And that became a real game changer for me. And then I got to the point that eventually over time I could get into the car and drive home from work without having to do all of that, and I wouldn't be thinking about food on the way home. So there's just so many areas of life where this just all crawls in, and food is just, it's how you celebrate the good times, it's how you comfort loved ones, it's how you comfort yourself. And there's a lot of strategies that fortunately Terri is going to help the fasting method create for everyone in our community throughout the course of 2020, so we can help to start changing these attitudes around food. And one thing that you said that made me laugh, I was just telling someone the other day, is I have to do a fasting blood test. And I did a fasting blood test a few months ago now. This is a follow-up blood test. And a few months ago when I went to do it, like, it was just a 12-hour fast. Like, I fasted for 11 days. 12 hours should be nothing. But because I'm thinking that I have to fast, those 12 hours were like 12 days. Like, that my 11-day fast was easier than those 12 hours. And I joked about this upcoming blood test. I thought, oh geez, like, it's going to be the 12 longest hours of my life since the last blood test. But today I've fasted for 24 hours without thinking about it once. So really, semantics and how you process fasting and what you're trying to think about on your fasting days makes a big difference. Information about Terri and working with Terri on our website at thefastingmethod.com. And Terri also hosts in our community a focus group on behavioral strategies as well. So you don't have to just meet Terri up in our coaching program. You can meet with her inside of our membership community. And we've got a few new things in the works that Terri's helping us out with, different ways for people to engage with her. I'm not 100% sure on the release date of this episode, so I don't want to give away too many hints. But go to thefastingmethod.com to check out and see what Terri's up to in the fasting method. But before we go, Terri's going to give us her top 3 tips, just 3 quick tips to help you get into the right mindset if you're brand new to fasting.
So one of them, I know this is an overused concept right now, but I think it's really important, is to know your why. Why are you doing this? Why is this important goal-wise for you? So for example, for me, I don't want to be diabetic again. I don't want to have neuropathy. And so when I decide whether I'm going to eat or what I'm going to eat, I can go back to that why. So really making clear what your why is, not just, hey, I'd like to lose a little weight or something. It has to be really clear, something that's really important to you. I think seeing what you're doing, both eating-wise and fasting-wise, as good self-care is really important. So it's not just that you're doing something good for yourself when you fast, and then whatever you do when you eat is fine. They both are your 2 strongest tools that you have. And then, again, the positive language. Rather than talking about how hard it is, talk about how excited you are that you get to fast today. Talk about how awesome it is that your body can go without eating these hours. Just changing those little things can make such a difference. Focus on your progress instead of perfection, and instead of focusing on what's challenging about it, I think is key.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Terri. Really appreciate everything that you've shared. So we hope this was helpful. If you got any comments or questions, please leave them in the comments box below, and the fasting method will get back to you. If you want to watch more videos like this, make sure you click like and subscribe below. We appreciate your support. Well, that's a wrap for today, and happy fasting, everyone.